Hi, everyone. Welcome to our last series in our Rediscover UpSlide webinar. We'll go ahead and kick things off with today's session. We're going to be focusing on collaboration aspects and elements of UpSlide, so thank you for joining us. If you weren't able to catch the other sessions in this series, let us know. We're happy to point you to where those resources are available. So we can kick things off today. To introduce who's going to be on the call today, my name is Anastasia. I'm the Client Success Manager based here in New York at UpSlide. On the call with me, I'll also have our consultant, Will Berry, who's based over in London, as well as Adrian, one of our senior support engineers who's based over in Paris. We encourage you to use the chat throughout the session for any questions or comments or concerns that you might have. Will and Adrian are going to be available throughout the session to be addressing your questions. So please do send them in. A couple of things to start off with, just some housekeeping elements, and maybe these are some questions that you might already have, but we will be recording the session, so it will be available for you to reference afterwards. You'll receive a recording in an email. And like we mentioned, please do ask those questions in the chat. So we do encourage you to leverage that. One additional point of housekeeping is about ensuring that you are on the most up-to-date version of UpSlide that is available. So in case some of the elements of the ribbon that we review today look a little bit different on my end as opposed to on your end, this could be a pretty simple fix. This could be simply due to needing to update the version of UpSlide that you are on. So I'm going to exit out of full screen mode just to show you what that process looks like. But as you are looking at your PowerPoint ribbon, navigate up to the top right-hand corner. You'll see this settings wheel. By clicking on it, you should have a window pop open. And at the very top of that window, you will see what version you are currently on. So if you are on a version that is at or below 6.7.24, then I encourage you to go ahead and run an update. You can do this very simply by clicking on this refresh window or refresh button. And then I'd also make sure that you close out of Microsoft Office and reopen it. At that point, you will have the most recent version of the tool available to you. If for any reason you're not seeing this version update, then again, please feel free to let us know in the chat and we'll be happy to connect with you and sort that out after the session. All right, and to cover a quick agenda on today's session's focus, so we're going to be spending majority of our time covering the content library, sharing a couple of use cases for situations in which this feature is helpful and where we see most clients leveraging this tool. We'll also spend a little bit of time covering Slide Converter that recently had a couple of updates released for it. And we'll finish up by focusing on sharing features. So once you're ready to wrap up your deliverable, get it sent over to a coworker for review or just save it down on your local workspace. We'll review what UpSlide has that's available to kind of automate that process a bit more. And in the end, we'll wrap up with our Q&A. So we'll address any of those questions that you submit throughout the session. So if anything isn't clear, you'd like a quick recap or review on anything that we cover, we'll have some time at the end of the session to address those points. Great. Well, let's kick things off. So as we mentioned, the content library accessing on-brand materials, corporate content that you have available, not only to you, but ideally to anyone on your team who is leveraging UpSlide and has it installed. So a couple of points with the library. If I look up at the ribbon, it's going to be on the left-hand side of your screen, this button labeled library. If we go ahead and click on this, what we'll be able to access is all of our frequently leveraged materials that are branded, that have been added into the library for you to leverage, where you don't have to worry about pinging a colleague and asking them for the most recent version of a slide or a deck. You don't have to worry about separately double checking if the information and materials that you're leveraging are up to date or is the only version of the content that is available. And before I start diving into the library and how to leverage it, just note that what we're going to be seeing on my end is going to be branded and have a little bit of a different look and feel to what you have set up on your end. So on your end, you have your customized content, which is arranged in the library in a workflow in a way that makes sense for your teams to leverage. Mine is just going to be tailored for UpSlide and what I use on the day-to-day basis. So if we take a look at the library panel that opens up when we hit the library tool, here's where all of our content lives and is organized. And as far as navigating this library and finding the content that we might specifically need for our deliverable, we have a couple of different ways of doing that. So you'll notice that I have a couple of different sections that I can double click and navigate. If I do so, I will have a couple of subsequent folders that appear that I can then click through, kind of explore and find certain information that way. I also have the ability to then further click into these folders and see what lives in that particular area of my library if I'm more so exploring and seeing what's available. You'll notice that in the bottom gray portion of this right-hand panel, I have little previews of the content that lives in the library. So as I'm exploring, I can click and drag the different elements and kind of scroll through, sorry, not click and drag, but scroll through and kind of see what I have available if I'm looking for more of an overview. And as I hover over certain elements in the library, I can see previews of the information that I'm looking at. So as I click through, I can understand if this is what I'm looking for. If I want to tailor what I'm searching a little bit more, I can leverage filters. So in the top right-hand corner here, I have this filter button. And if I click on that, I can kind of narrow down my search to have the tool show me only slides or entire decks. Maybe I want to just search for objects such as logos, maps. These are all examples of content that you can have living in your library and stored. And if any of this content is easier to find, if certain tags are associated with it, so for example, your team might use particular lingo, you can add and search content by tags as well. So whatever your preference, you have a couple of different ways depending on how broad or how narrow your search window is. One additional way to search for content is by keying in keywords. So if I have a rough understanding of what I'm looking for, I can start typing in that search, and the tool will start to generate suggestions for me depending on the words that I'm keying in. Before doing so, in this preview, I can also see and leverage any of the most frequently used content that I've looked up for in the past. So as simple and as quick as possible, we try to kind of zoom in and allow for that content that you're searching to be leveraged. So in my case, if I am building out a corporate deck, I might want to have maybe a partner overview that I'm including in my story. As I start keying in partner overview, you'll notice that the content in the bottom right-hand portion of that panel starts to update. This is happening as the tool is kind of cross-referencing the keywords that I'm entering with information that it finds throughout the content stored in my library. So as I scroll through these recommendations, I can hover over previews and understand, is this the correct content or not? So as I hover over this particular slide, I have a partner overview that I have pulled up. So it's picked up those keywords that are located on the slide. And as I look at this preview, just want to highlight and draw your eye to the bottom left-hand corner of this content. So as a user, you can see the file's name highlighted in orange, Pyramid Partners Overview. That matches up with what I was searching for. But before I insert this into my deck, I might want to just have some double checks for myself to understand and be sure that this content is specifically relevant for my deliverable. And a couple of points of information that bottom left-hand corner covers is, for example, when this information was last edited or last updated. So I can see that towards the end of last year, in November, this content was updated. That seems to make sense. This is a pretty broad overview slide. I'm not expecting this to be updated on a quarterly basis or on a weekly or monthly basis. So I'm kind of reassured as a user that this is the most accurate version of this content. I can also see who last made edits to this slide. So in that by window, you can see your coworker who was responsible for that content, who is the administrator of that content. So should you have any questions about the information, should you see something on the content where you might want to recommend an update or a change, you know who you can reach out to internally and who will have ownership over this content to continue updating it or tweaking it to make sure that it remains consistent and leverageable within that library for everyone to use. So as I review this slide, this was what I was looking for. I now want to drop this into the deck that I'm working on. What I can do is double click on this particular slide, and it will now appear within my deliverable. So I see it popping into my presentation. And as a user, now that I have this slide located in my deck, I do have the ability to continue to work on the slide. So it's added as a native PowerPoint object, which means that I can make changes or edits to the content, and these changes will stay local to the presentation that I'm working on. So as a user, you don't have to worry about dropping a slide in, making some changes, and seeing those changes across everyone trying to leverage that information from the library. This content and this edit will stay local to the deliverable that you are working on. Great. So leveraging content from the library, pulling that information in. Once you drop that information in and make those changes, you can continue working on your deliverable, continue to add and drop entire sections, groups of slides, individual slides, objects. All of that can be navigated and found and located in that library. Awesome. If we continue building out our deliverable, so if I move into the next section where I might want to tweak a couple of elements as far as the look and feel, this is where I want to move into and discuss the slide converter tool a little bit more. So slide converter is, in summary, an easy way to take one look and feel of slides, so one branding of content, and convert it, as the name suggests, into another look and feel of that content. So another template, another branding. And we typically see two instances where clients will leverage this tool the most. So one instance is if I am working on materials, I'm leveraging the library, I'm pulling in all elements that are one consistent brand, which is my brand. However, when I'm creating a deliverable, maybe for particular instances, I would rather have the deliverable appear in my client's look and feel, so my client's brand. Slide Converter is great in that instance where you can select a range of slides or individual slides and quickly convert them into a client's look and feel. Another instance where we see Slide Converter being leveraged is if teams have UpSlide up and running, they have their templates, they have their library, and they want to be able to leverage slides and add slides into the library that match the template that has been set up for them in their UpSlide environment. If they're taking an older template or an existing template, they can then use Slide Converter to convert that content into an UpSlide template and continue to leverage that content moving forward by adding it into the library, having it be accessible from the library, and continuing to use that information in that way. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to close out of library. And if we go through an example of some of the elements that you have available within Slide Converter, I have 3 subsequent slides which are currently in my UpSlide branding. So I have some background information on global expertise. I have some contact information. We see our consultant Will Barry popping up here, so making a guest appearance. But what I want to do is I want to select these 3 slides and I want to convert them into a bit of a different look and feel. So after doing so, I can navigate up into the ribbon. Quite close to where library sits, I have the Slide Converter tool. So by clicking on Slide Converter, what you will see in the dropdown on my end are all of the templates that I, as an UpSlide employee, have integrated. So again, just a side note, this might look a little bit different on your end because you have your templates integrated here. But for the sake of the example, I currently have this content in my kind of default UpSlide branding. I have a couple of other templates integrated that have different branding, different looks and feels that I might want to convert this content into for a particular project. Or in that instance of converting elements into a different existing presentation, this is where you would go and click on this tool to deploy that particular option in that particular use case that we described a little bit earlier. For the sake of this example, I want to convert into this F31 template. I will go ahead and select that. The tool will take a second to do its job, and we'll see. Let me just close out of this window. But we'll see those 3 slides that it grabbed and converted a couple of different elements. So in this view, you have that slide converter panel that has opened up on the right-hand side. It's letting you know that the slides were successfully converted, and you can now continue to fine-tune the look and feel of this new rebranded information. So when I navigate over into conversion tools, I'll see that I have a couple of different areas of focus that the slide converter picks up on and scans as it's doing that conversion. The first one is kind of the foundation of the look and feel of the content, which is the layout. If you are converting from one look and feel into another, and that exact layout doesn't exist or it doesn't match 100%, what the tool will do is it will recommend layouts that are as similar as possible for you to then go ahead and apply. And you can do so by clicking on this apply button right here. So it'll always try to match those layouts as closely as possible without making the visuals wonky. Another element that you can fine tune and continue to play around with are the colors. So colors of the fill, the outline, the font that we're looking at. In my case, what quick example I can show is on this slide, for example, I have our worldwide offices now converted into this blue color tone, this blue palette that exists in the new template. If I want to revert any of these changes or just apply my own personal touch, I can go ahead and do so by focusing on either the current selection. So right now I'm working on this one slide. I'll notice that in the bottom portion of this panel, I have just the selection that I'm working on opted for. If I want to deploy a change to any of the fonts or shape fills throughout my presentation, I do have the option of selecting the entire deck. So in this case, I want to play around with this particular element and I want to change the fonts. You have that ability down here in the font portion of the conversion tools. Select the color that you currently have and would like to change, and select what theme color you would like to deploy differently. So in my case, maybe I want to revert back to that carmine color to have a little bit more cohesion with some of the map shading that I see in the bottom portion of that slide. Once I hit apply, it'll go ahead and it'll change those fonts. I already know that those themes and those fonts are branding approved because they're built into my options and into my tool. If for some case you do want to change this into a different color that is not available in the themes, just know that you can select custom colors and have a broader color wheel available to you. Great. So I'm going to hop back into the deck that we were working on. Let's say that we've added elements from the library. We've converted content into a bit of a different look and feel. As I'm wrapping up creating this deliverable, I want to quickly finalize some elements of my presentation. So one last area of focus, when you are done with your presentation and you're ready to complete your deck, there's a couple of quick checks and tools that are available for your disposal just to ensure that the deliverable is clean and ready to go. So building off of one of the features discussed in our other session, so building off of slide check, you can have a specified focus of check that is on language specifically. So in the top right-hand corner of our toolbar, we have these 3 features: send, finalize, and language. Starting off with language, in this dropdown, you have a couple of pre-built languages that you can select and deploy across your entire presentation. And the tool will go ahead and check spelling and grammatics for whatever language you selected. So in the end, if you want to do an extra double check on spelling and make sure that you avoid any errors around grammar or whatnot, please feel free to do so and leverage the language spell check for that. If we've gone ahead and we've ran our check, we've made sure that there's no spelling errors throughout our presentation, we can either finalize the deliverable and save it down on our workspace, or we can go ahead and send the deliverable over for review. These features are quite similar, but a little bit different depending on the workflow that you're aiming for. So starting with finalize, if I navigate up into this top right-hand corner again, and I click on this check mark, there are a couple of quick fixes or elements that I might want to run through anytime I'm wrapping up a report. And what this finalize tool does is it'll pop open a window where all of those last minute steps are located in one place. So if I go ahead and click on finalize, you'll have a couple of options around how you want to end working on this report. So either saving down the entire presentation that we've just created, or just the selected slides, you can go ahead and name the file, save it down, dictate to UpSlide if you would like it in PowerPoint or PDF format. And then dropping down in these options, you have those last minute ticks and checks. So for example, refreshing your table of content to make sure your page numbers, section dividers, presentation structure are all aligned, removing any cross-reference links, links in Excel, links in Power BI, and making sure that those are broken before you save down and have the file ready to then send. And if you are ready to go ahead and send this file immediately for collaboration purposes or for kind of a final review, send will work quite similarly. So if I click on send, we will see a very similar window pop up. If we drop down into the options, we will have the same options appear for breaking links, deploying those last minute tweaks. Once you hit OK, the tool will automatically prompt you to save down the deliverable if you haven't done so already. And then it'll open up an Outlook email window. All you have to do is enter the recipient, the quick message that you want attached along with this deliverable. The deliverable will already be included, and you can then just go ahead and hit send. Great. So as we've been going through the presentation and kind of this walkthrough on collaboration, in case there have been any questions that have come in through the chat throughout this session, Will, going to hand it over to you to highlight anything that has come through.
Hi, Stars. So yeah, we've had some good questions in the chat. So thanks very much for those of you asking that. Maybe just no specific questions right now. A couple of things on Slide Converter, but I think you covered them all, which is great to see. So that tool to allow you to either convert into an existing brand or to help you convert between very different brands. I saw that color switcher as a great little option you showed. Thanks, Stars. Maybe as a reminder, if any of the people in the audience do have questions around maybe some improvements as well, I'm sure Stars will come on to this later on. Put them in the chat and we're passing them on to our product team as we go along, and we'll assign your name to it so you'll get an update if we work on there. So for now, Stars, I think you can carry on and stick in your keep in the right. Oh, I'm going to say a strange thing. Stay in your lane, okay, and I'll stay in mine. All right.
Perfect. Great. Going off of what Will just mentioned, so kind of leading into suggestions, recommendations, and questions that you might think of after, just want to leave you with a couple of resources and highlight them. So if you ever have questions around the tool, please note that you can contact our support team. You do have an option up in the right-hand corner close to where we looked at send, finalize, and language. This question mark will lead you to a couple of options of getting in touch with support, viewing some user guides, and leveraging our help center for additional resources. You can also make your recommendations and feedback on improvements to the tool, new features that you would like to see in the future. So I do encourage you to explore that help option when you do get a chance. You will also see on your screens right now a quick poll asking for your feedback. So as we're wrapping up the session, would love to know how helpful and useful you found the series, if you were able to attend this one or the other ones as well. And making sure that you are aware that you can reach out to us on additional resources and support if you would like more in-depth training, additional insights on features and tools that we weren't able to cover in the time that we had together. You have Elizabeth's email up on the screen, so don't hesitate to reach out to us and share those thoughts there. And as we're wrapping up, if you've had a moment to complete the poll, if there are no additional questions, we want to thank you for joining us. We hope that you found these sessions useful. Let us know your thoughts in the chat or in those polls, and we'll give you back the last 4 minutes of the session. So thank you, and wherever you are, have a great rest of your day.